What made you go into the career that you chose in pest control? That is like, a lot of people don't like critters and bugs and things like that.
Okay. So literally all it was, I ended up getting into pest control whenever I started my recovery, basically. So I was bartending for a long time, worked in the restaurant industry. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed dealing with people, but it was not always the best space to be in, I guess.
Right.
So whenever I got done with rehab and all that stuff, I was just looking for jobs, and it was one that kind of got offered up, and I was like, I'll try it. I went in. I don't know. I've never really been afraid of bugs, but I'm not like, I wasn't picking them up and collecting them. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it wasn't my thing. But yeah, that was all it was. I literally just needed something, and the opportunity kind of just showed up.
Did you have to like study and take a test to like have knowledge of the chemicals, what to identify different bugs and things like that?
You don't have to take a test. So depending on the company you go for, they all kind of have different things that you have to do, but generally you just have the training. I did 3 months of training before I went out on my own. So I was with somebody every day, going to stops, doing my thing, taking care of that stuff. And you learn the bugs, you learn chemicals, you learn how to take care of situations. A lot of what you learn, you just learn trial by fire. You're out there and you're figuring out how things go,
Right.
and you're calling people who have more experience than you and being like, hey, what do I do in this situation? So that is kind of how you get into it. When you go for something, like, I'm also one of the only people that has my own license now. So I have my own license, and I'm licensed for like mosquitoes and stuff like that. Not everybody has that and can do that. So
Why would somebody get a license? Does it better the money?
no, it doesn't really better the money. It's more just for your credibility. Like whenever I'm going out to somebody and trying to promote my service, I can say I'm actually licensed, where a lot of guys aren't. Whenever it comes to mosquito stuff, you have to be licensed to do mosquito work. So that opened up like a whole new avenue of stuff that I could do too. So
Why do you need to be licensed for mosquito work? What's the difference?
it's a little bit more dangerous because, like, whenever you're doing regular pest control, you're more focusing on structural stuff. So it's stuff around the house, and
Okay.
somebody has contracted you to basically do their pest control at their house. Whenever you're doing mosquito, you're still generally around a house or a building or something, but it's more widespread. You got to treat near rivers and understand how and why to treat around a river. You have to treat around plants, but you can't treat around flowering plants. You can't treat around, obviously, like fruits and vegetables, stuff like that.
When you come home from work, do you have a special process because you are working with these chemicals and you're in these crawl spaces and dirty areas? Like, do you have a process to, like, before you enter your house?
Crawl spaces, not so much. I have had a couple instances where, like, there were dead animals down there, and there was a lot of animal poop and pee and things had been living down there. So it's a little bit nastier. And in those regards, yes, I'd strip down.
So, when you are in an area where there's mice and there's like feces and stuff, when you're just breathing around in that area, can you get sick?
Mhm.
Does that cause illnesses? What does that cause?
So that can be a couple different things depending on what actually happens. If we're just talking mice, you can get, oh my gosh, I'm horrible with the names. There's one that you can get where if you basically have poop or pee that gets in food, or if you were to like get a whole bunch that soaked kind of into your skin and then you accidentally touched your face or something, you can get one that can be fatal. There are a lot of breathing issues that come along with stuff like that too. If you're
Right.
dealing with mouse poop a lot, yeah, there's a number of things. It all just kind of depends what happens.
So if somebody has an infestation, say in like the pantry where they keep all of their extra food, and they're, cleaning everything out, do you need to discard that food or can you wipe it down? I mean, it's one of those situations where I would probably toss everything because you just don't know.
Which, I mean, that's not up to us at all. That is up to the people. Some people don't care.
What is recommended though? Is there a recommendation when it comes to that? Like if you were in
Yeah.
someone's house, would you be like, you know what, ma'am, I would probably discard that food that you have, or
If they've really been getting into the pantry, then sure. Like if you can actively tell, boxes are chewed open and all types of stuff, anything that they could get into, yeah, I would say throw it out because you just do not want that risk. Health had asked if you wear a respirator and a Tyvek suit, depending on the situation. Yes, respirator is always a good idea just because you have all that stuff that you kick up, especially if you're doing a crawl space job, like you're doing construction in the crawl space, or you're going through one that really doesn't get disturbed, you're kicking up a lot of shit, like a ton of stuff. So you got to be just really careful.
is it only dirty people that have like roaches and stuff like that in their house? Because honestly, I always thought that, oh my God, only dirty people get bugs like that until it happened to me.
You got to think of it kind of on like a pest to pest basis. So mice can go anywhere. If it's dirtier, they're more likely to kind of be a little bit more widespread, in my opinion. Whenever a lot of people think that bed bugs, you have to be dirty to get bed bugs, that is absolutely false. Bed bugs do not care if you're dirty, whatever. They only care about being able to feed on you. As Scotty said, he's been in $1 million homes with bed bugs. I have too. I've been in just about everywhere, every aspect of the ladder, and bed bugs are a thing.
So, say I go into a hotel room, how would I identify if there was bed bugs?
Cool. Okay. So I would say the first thing that you would want to do is probably the simplest thing. Literally just go to the bed, peel apart the bed, kind of check in the corners. Usually bed bugs, whenever they're going for a bed, you'll find batches of them right on that kind of lining of the mattress, and they'll be in a corner or something.
And it's like a dark brown color.
Bed bugs are they're kind of dark brown with a little black spot. You'll find black spots kind of peppered throughout certain areas if they've focused on a spot, just because that's their poop. You'll also find a lot of blood stains and stuff because whenever you're
Blood.
because they eat you.
What, that really caught me off guard. I'm caught off guard by that. I never knew that. So if I'm in a hotel room and there's bed bugs, like potentially they can get blood from me and then it could get onto the bed or the mattress or the sheets.
Yes, because they're eating you and you still move and roll over and do all types of stuff. So they'll bite you and feed, and as they're scurrying away, you may, feel it and you smush it or whatever, and then it just kind of gets smushed into the mattress, and yeah, they'll get washed, like the sheets and everything get washed. But
wow.
There. Yeah, that's
oh my
pretty
God. So the way to kill bed bugs is very, very, you put stuff in trash bags, right? Or very, very hot water.
Don't do that, please, God.
Well, see, there you go. So that's what I was always told. So let me hear what a professional would say.
So that's not going to kill bed bugs. There's, depending on how you're going to get treated, there's a lot of prep involved. Like sometimes I'll tell people, if you're clearing out your closet, anything you aren't going to use for the next couple of weeks, just put in a trash bag and put somewhere else. You do want to dry it first, put it in the dryer, then do a round in the wash, obviously, and then dryer again. Put all that stuff in a bag, put it off to the side, and then keep all that stuff separate. everything that you're going to have that you are going to want to wear, usually just put in totes and work with that for a little bit. But bed bugs, you can do, there are a whole bunch of different ways to deal with them. You can do heat treatments, which is all fine and dandy. We do not do heat treatments. The reason being, you have to get literally every single part of everywhere, behind every baseboard, everything to 116 degrees. If it doesn't get to 116 degrees, you are not going to kill those bed bugs.
Wow.
So if you miss a spot, you could still have bed bugs keep coming, and you kind of have to redo it. It's just too much.
How do they multiply? How do they reproduce? Do you only need one, or?
Kind of. They need to be able to feed to reproduce. So if they aren't feeding, they aren't going to thrive. So that's why, like, you'll have a hotel room, and a female may get to somebody and they finally feed. They weren't bad in the hotel room, but they feed and then get into your stuff. They'll go home with you, possibly have eggs in your stuff or at your friend's house or at your house, and now you have an infestation, kind of.
So how often would you recommend someone to wash their pillowcases, their sheets, their, fabric in their house?
If you're dealing with them,
regularly. I mean, once a week, because stuff like that gets onto curtains, fabric.
So once a week is usually good, maybe once every other week. That's not as big of a deal. It's more like if you're traveling a lot and stuff and you are worried about it, then, maybe check your stuff a little bit more. Be cognizant, wash your stuff, because you can't always live in fear of bed bugs. It just wasting your time. Curtains are a big thing. You don't really.
That's what I was thinking, because a lot of people have like fabric around their house, like my couch, the pillows to the couch. I really don't wash them, but I will take like a carpet cleaner, like a fabric cleaner, and like steam clean backpacks. Yeah, Penny's right. Like kids' backpacks, your purse.
So the backpack thing is big. It's hard too, because I've heard of kids going to school and they have roaches or bed bugs in their house, and they go to school and someone finds out, or one crawls out of a bag or something. They will publicly humiliate that kid and
that's horrible.
Out and dump it all out. And yeah, I've had schools try and do kind of like what you said, where they soak the backpack in hot water. Just all that stuff is pointless. You aren't actually going to solve anything doing that. You need to just have a professional come in and treat. Because one of the big things with bed bugs too, a lot of people think that they can just solve the problem by themselves. A lot of people get diatomaceous earth, which that stuff is basically garbage. People get those like Raid sprays, the insta-kill stuff. None of that is going to work. It's only going to kill on contact, and a lot of those actually have repellents in them. So you're forcing your problem into like a wall or something, and it makes it harder to deal with. Bug bombs are the worst possible thing you could ever use. Bug bombs, whenever they disperse, they'll kill everything on contact, but you have all these things hiding all over the place that they just aren't going to come out anymore. They're going to run away. So
I moved into this apartment when I was first in recovery, and I was I was just so grateful to have a place of my own. And it was in a place that I didn't really want to live. But when you're, a fresh start, you'll take anything.
Right.
So I'm in my apartment. I made it the way that I liked it, kept it clean, kept it nice, made a home for myself and the kids. I started getting roaches. Never in my life did I see roaches. They were all over in the kitchen. At nighttime, I would walk in there and they would just be running all across the countertops, the floors. I was mortified because I never lived like that ever. Like even in my addiction, I literally didn't know what to do. The exterminator comes out to the house. He's like, listen, he sprays whatever, nothing changed. I kept calling. He's like, listen, this is not coming from your house, sweetheart. This whole building needs to be bombed. Everyone needs to evacuate. The whole building needs to be tented off. And that's the only way to solve this problem.
Which tinting is not completely necessary. You do not have to tint. It just needs an actual treatment. Bombing is again the wrong way to go. You kind of, especially with roaches, you want to use more residuals and growth regulators where they cross it, and they'll take some of that chemical with them and they'll die off after a little bit, but they spread it a lot easier. Yeah, and that stuff happens a lot with bed bugs, roaches. If someone lets a mouse problem get really bad, it's going to happen with mice all the time. But if the reason it's not going to work is because the initial source is not being solved. So the source is probably next door, and they're just going to keep coming, which they may cross chemical to get in there, but it's not going to kill them right away, and they're still going to find ways around that chemical. So you keep having a problem.
I literally threw everything out. All of my, it literally made my skin crawl. Like I felt dirty in my own home. Like it was that bad. And they had to just keep coming out. One time they made me take they made me take all of my furniture and put it into one bedroom. And I had to leave my house for like 6 hours. But they made me take my couch and everything. I had to put every single thing from all of my cabinets and everything into one bedroom. I had to literally like remove my whole house around by myself.
Why though? What was the point of it?
That's what the exterminator and my apartment complex told me to do. It literally, do you understand how hard it is to take everything that you own and put it into one room? Like,
yeah, that's just not necessary.
Wait, hold on. While you have kids, like, oh, let me touch this. Oh, it was a nightmare, Kyle, a nightmare.
No, yeah, that stuff just usually isn't necessary. And now it depends how long ago it was too, because you got to understand chemical has come a long way from what it used to be. So there are things that are way more effective now. Yeah, that's just no. I don't think there's anything that would make me need to have a customer do that.
I felt so inconvenienced. I was so stressed out. And mind you, here I am with kids. Like, then I had to leave the house. I had nowhere to go when I had to leave the house. It was just like not a good day.
Sometimes that's going to be a thing no matter what. Like for bed bug and roach jobs, we have you leave for 4 hours.
Right.
That's generally all it takes. Now, if you have like birds you have to be very, very careful with. I usually have people keep birds out for a good like 24 hours. Certain odder pets, maybe dogs and cats, are usually fine after about 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, it's the moving everything to one room. The only thing that I can think of is they were literally just going to treat everywhere and say fuck it and spray and pray, basically, which that's just not how you treat. So I had one just the other day that was an extremely bad roach job too, and it was to the point, of course, while you're treating, it's real. You will go into ones where once you start treating, they start getting more active and they start freaking out. This whole place, a lot of their problem was around the trim of the house. So they start crawling across the ceiling and the chemical starts affecting them. So they start dying and they will rain on you. And so like yesterday, that's when it was. Yesterday, I had to go and take care of this job. And whenever I got home, I stripped down to my boxers and put everything in the wash first thing, and yeah, it's all good.
Why do roaches come out in the dark at night? Like, They're more prevalent and running around when it's nighttime for some reason.
So kind of. It's more roaches are very like skittish.
Right.
So at night you're generally asleep and know that light's not on. There's no other things around to bug them. So they'll spread at night and kind of explore. Usually what ends up happening, like if you open a door or flick on that light, it's just that fight or flight reaction kind of, which for roaches it's almost always flight.
Right, they're running.
It's because there is a change in the room and they are very good at sensing that change. So the second they feel that change is happening, they just dip off.
Right.
And they do. They love dog food. Dog food is big. Coffee is really big for roaches. I mean, there are a million things. Roaches are, to answer your earlier question, roaches are the one thing that if it's dirty in your house, it's not that you can't get roaches unless you're dirty. Roaches can only thrive in a dirty environment.
So I have a question. So say I get something shipped to my house from Temu and it's in a box and there happens to be like, could there be like a roach egg or a roach or something in that box? And I open up whatever and that's how it enters my house. I always think about that when I get deliveries. Like, could there be, that's why I get rid of the box immediately. Like shit like that always crosses my mind.
Yes, to some degree, because a lot of that stuff is getting shipped from far away or whatever.
Right.
So there is a lot of room for in that travel period. If there was an egg sack or something, it releases in the box. Usually they're all going to leave because unless you get something that they can use as a food source or whatever, they aren't going to stay in that area. But I mean, it can happen for sure, 100%.
Last year, I had a snake in my freaking house. Remember when I freaked out and I texted you and I'm like, oh my God, Kyle, what the, like that literally set, how can something like that happen? Like, so when people's base of their house is in, there's little holes and I don't know. Listen, that thing when I seen that, I wanted to light a match and just call it a day.
Okay. So I can break this down for you, because you were talking about it when someone's foundation isn't up to par. It's not just that. So you have to think about how the layout of a house is. You have pipes going everywhere. You have wiring going everywhere. You may have foundation cracks. There might be an area behind the siding where maybe somebody didn't seal the home properly and there's a gap right there, and all they have to do is find an area where a pipe's going through, a wire's going through, whatever, and they can sneak in. Whenever it comes to snakes, they can maneuver a lot of ways. Mice are really big because mice, if your pinky can fit in a hole, a mouse can fit in that hole. So, and they're very good climbers. Like if you have a brick house, they can climb up your house like they're running across the ground.
Well, speaking of that, I had a mice problem and I came to you about that as well.
Yeah.
Well, my washer and dryer, and above my washer and dryer is shelves. So I had a bag hanging on a hanger with like my kids' coats. Like their mittens, their gloves, all their winter like accessories. So I go to open Kyle. I go to open the bag up. I literally seen a dead mouse like all like that, okay?
That was a spot.
Laying on my daughter's hat. I took the whole bag, I threw it, and it made me cry because one of those hats was like a sentimental hat from when my girls were babies. Like all of them wore this hat.
Yeah.
But, the mouse versus sentimental, I'm sorry I had to throw the shit away. I took a picture of the hat and I said goodbye.
You got to do what you got to do, though.
Right.
I mean, if it's all pee covered and stuff, then yeah, you might as well just get
Oh,
rid of it.
so that's a very good question. Do mice pee? Because I always see mice poop.
Yeah, it's
But
just
I don't think a lot of people know that.
pee is gonna soak in and evaporate a little bit different, so it's not.
Does it
It's
have
not.
a scent?
Yeah, it can, especially when it gets really bad.
Like what type of scent would you say if you walked into a house, like I'm sure you're drawn to certain odors, like oh my god, there it is. Oh, yep, there's the infestation right there.
So you usually won't smell that with mice. You can
Okay.
with roaches. Roaches has a smell. Like if you walk into a house, I can instantly tell you if they've got a bad roach problem, even if I was blindfolded, because
What does that smell
uh,
like to you?
roaches. It's just you just know the smell.
Roaches.
Usually in a mouse in a place where mice are really bad, you get really used to the smell of death because it's you smell it all over the place because they'll die in walls, they'll die in the crawl space, the attic, stuff like that, like crazy. So you'll
So
yeah.
if they do, and they're like in a wall and you can't get to that, what can you do to get rid of that scent? Because no one's going to want to smell something rotten in their house.
Light a candle, get some, you can light a candle, you can get some odor
Light a
bags.
candle.
um,
Hey, light a candle.
because you got to think about it, homie. You are saying, which some people will do it. Okay, the smell is coming from that wall.
Right.
You have to hope that you're going to open up the right portion of the wall. You have to cut that open, remove the mouse if you finally find it, fix all the insulation and everything
Right.
in there,
Too
put
much.
everything back. It's too much for something that's probably going to last a week tops. And then now, if you got like a dead raccoon or something, or bunnies smell really bad dead. If you have something like that in a wall and you have that smell, that is probably going to go for quite some time. And that I would say, yeah, I would get that shit removed.
Have you ever seen a snake go through a toilet? Like that's one. I'm sorry, but that I have to ask you that because that is one of my biggest fears. Open up a toilet and there's a freaking snake in there.
Not in pest control. I saw it whenever I was very, very little. We lived in a small town, and I've seen that one time.
I can never unsee something like that.
It's not super common. Usually when I run into snakes, it's either outside, of course, or you're crawling through a crawl space, and it always sucks because it's always the crawl spaces that are really tight. So you're already doing like a belly crawl, and you just turn your head and
My
like
anxiety would be like, like
it's
when
not
you
that
first
bad.
had. What was your first experience when you went into a very tight crawl space? How did you feel?
So I have one. Well, I don't have it anymore because I don't do my route anymore. I'm all over the place, but I have one that I had to do termite inspections for once a year. It's not that bad, but she also needed crawl space work, so we installed like a dehumidifier, sump pump, all types of stuff down there. Uh,
Okay.
to get into her crawl space, you have to go in feet first. You have to bend the right way. You have to bend your knees while getting in, or you're going to get stuck. And as you're going down, you have to work one arm around and have one up. And you usually end up knocking this arm out of socket because it has to be this arm. So you knock this arm out of socket, push through, and then you're good to go.
Wow.
So that one, I didn't know how to get in there the first time. So I cut open my side really bad because there's concrete blocks on one portion, and I mean they just rubbed all up and down my side. Uh, I mean, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get out.
That has to be one of the most fearful feelings of feeling
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm freaking trapped.
I don't get claustrophobic really anymore. It's more when you go in a really sketchy house that you can tell shouldn't be standing, and there's like a termite eaten piece of wood literally holding the entire house up, and you're just like, if I knock something the wrong way, this house is coming down on me. Those get a little weird.
So, speaking of that, have you ever gone into a house where you felt uncomfortable because you're in the crawl space and like the people are a little sketch? So, like, here you are below them, like almost feeling like like sketchy people. I don't know. Some people.
So not really getting into crawl spaces. I've had times like I've
Or
gone
people hitting on you, or like men or women hitting on you when you come to the door, like, hey,
so
hey.
so you'll get, oh my gosh.
I'm
Okay,
sure.
so crawl spaces, it's normally like if an animal comes down there, that's the bigger, because like somebody's cat will go down there because they left the door open.
Right.
That's weird, but people don't really do anything weird in crawl spaces. Going into people's houses, we had, back whenever I was training, we had this one person that, like, we walked in, she seemed like a normal old lady. We went down into her basement and she had a whole bunch of witchcraft stuff and like a seance table. She had jars full of like eyeballs from
Did your
animals
heart
and
start
stuff.
like pounding where you're like, oh shit?
Honestly, I was glad I was with somebody because
Right.
we kind of made a joke about it, and we were just like, we aren't going to make it out of here. She's a super nice lady. She's into witchcraft stuff, and that's her thing. Whatever. I've had ladies actively answer the door wearing either just a robe or nothing or whatever.
I have never in my life thought of just, hey, calling someone to my house and just like, what?
It's weird too. Usually that happens. So it'll happen with a person you've never met before. That happens a lot.
And probably even like a man could do the same thing. Like it doesn't matter.
It's happened with a couple of guys. I've ran into people topless, naked, whatever, a couple of times. Because you got to understand too, you'll get your customers that are your regular customers. We go out to these people every 3 months usually. If they have
Right.
something happen in between, we'll go out another time. So you have people that you see more than they see like their family, and their husband travels all the time or something, and you kind of just become that extra friend, and you solve their bug problems when they're terrified. So you kind of do become like a lifeline, and some people want things to happen, and you just got to draw a line.
So now your job is more door to door, right?
Not really.
Okay.
So now I do. So I did the tech thing for 5 years, and now I'm just doing sales and marketing. I don't go door to door. I don't know. I don't feel right about it. So any sales that come into the office where like somebody calls and says they have a problem, they send me out to do the inspection. And my
Okay.
job isn't really to sell technically. Obviously, I'm going to end up selling them things, but my job is to inspect, see what problems you're having, know how to fix that problem, and just tell you your options. And if you want to do something, cool. If not, cool. Like either or.
Right. So you go out, you write up like a little contract of like, this is the way that I would do A, B, C, and D.
Yep. Yeah. And it's cool. It's nice because my the owner of the company, we're in a family owned company, so it's nice because there's a little bit more leeway. Like I'm not pressured to sell. Some of the bigger companies will literally go in and they're pressured, and I mean you have to sell or you will lose your job. That type of pressure.
Wow.
And so
That's a lot right there because honestly, I'm not a salesperson at all. So that wouldn't work out for me at all.
I couldn't do a job like that because it's like you'll have little old ladies that can't go up in their attic or their crawl space, and these other companies come in and be like, uh, you have mice all over in your attic, and now we're going to tell you you need a $20,000 attic insulation job to clean all this out and get rid of the
Right.
mice. It's like, that's not a real thing. You can do a clean out, but that is not the only option. Usually clean outs are actually worse in attics because mouse feces and remains and all that stuff, it is all kind of like asbestos, where you at least have like the insulation and everything. It just stays stagnant. Whenever you start removing all that, it stirs it up.
So does it stir up like more germs in the air, like more airborne?
Yeah.
That's what I always worried about. Like when I had mice and I started cleaning everything out, and like the kids are running around touching everything, and I'm like, like I'm trying, because honestly, it was a pretty decent infestation of mice. Like I had the exterminator out here multiple times.
Which, whenever you have little bits and pieces, like it's just a kind of a small amount of activity. It's not as big of a deal. Big activity, yeah, you
Okay.
have to be careful.
Do you ever have any health problems that you've had to go to the doctor for? Because I remember you had that lingering cough for a long time. And you said that, you kind of got it after you were in a basement.
So I was in a really bad crawl space that had cats living in it for quite some time, and
Cats, wait, cats in the crawl space? Like,
it had a few cats living in there.
wow.
And we were going in there and removing like the vapor barrier on the ground, and there were still dead cats and poop and pee and all types of
So
stuff.
there was live cats, dead cats. Oh God.
Yeah,
That
and
must
so
have.
we had to remove all that stuff, and I had the proper protection. But while you're down there dragging all types of shit and doing all types of stuff,
Right.
the mask gets knocked off sometimes, and you put it back on after a few minutes or whatever. But and it gets hot, man, because you got to understand too. So one, all the substances back in the day didn't help me.
Right.
Illinois is super, super humid. Like today, it is just, it's all humidity. So it's super hot here. I'm going into like my truck where it's nice and cool, to outside where it's one temperature, to in someone's house where it's another. And like my body doesn't regulate well anymore, which is why I'm always hot. Like in here, if I get hot, I stay hot. So it's like that's one thing that's kind of jacked me up a little bit. That's weird. The cough, yeah, that one kind of scared me a little bit more because it was just like,
Because it was lingering for months,
have it.
actually.
I
Right.
still have it. It went away in April and May, and then it came back. Like I still have a cough. I've had a cough for almost a full year now.
Well,
Yeah, but I really don't. I don't think that's the chemicals and stuff. I don't really know, because from what we've noticed, like we think it's the little flap right there. For some reason, like I'm getting a lot more mucus and stuff that hits that point, and
could
then
it be more allergy related than
yes.
anything? Like probably mold spores, stuff like that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's more allergies, and I'm outside all the time, so it's kind of just, yeah.
Right. That's a pretty interesting job. Have you ever come across something that you were scared of? Like you literally were like, oh shit, I got to do this.
My biggest like girl moment, freak out moment, I guess I should call it. My very first lead, which is like someone called in saying they needed help with something. My very first one by myself after training, yes, Michelle, I'm still smoking, was a roach lead. And I had seen a couple, it wasn't something that I was super comfortable with yet, but whatever. I go into this lead, and the roaches were so bad that their kitchen floor was white. It was now black from all
It
the
was like you could just see movement, like
So it was so bad I had to keep moving my feet because if I didn't, a roach would climb up on me. They were falling from the ceiling, and this was my first lead by myself, and it was just
Oh
like,
my. So what did you do? How did you
uh,
handle that?
so I remember walking out. I did a real quick walkthrough, and like you would walk into the rooms, and roaches were pouring out of their dresser drawers. Like it was just
Kyle, that is the point. Like if something that is the point where I would just be like, bye Felicia. Bye.
so I did my quick inspection. I said, give me just a second. Let me call my boss. I'm still kind of new, so I want to make sure I got pricing.
Right. I'm new and I'm about to have a mother effing heart attack.
So I did. I walked out to the truck and I damn near started crying. I was like, dude, whenever you don't understand, I don't care how tough you are or whatever.
Oh my
If
God,
you are
dude.
not used to that and you walk into something like that,
Right.
you have
Right.
no idea how just overwhelming that is.
I
It's hard. It's hard.
So then what did you do? What did your boss say? What did you have to go back and say? Tell me.
Went in and told him what the price would be, and
How much was something like that?
uh, it depends. This was a little back in the day, but it was like a trailer that was like 2 bedroom or something. I want to say it was like $700,
Okay.
somewhere.
I'm just curious, like how much it kind of runs to get something that bad taken care of.
It all
Because
depends.
at that point, I'd be like, bye.
It depends too, because like now prices have kind of increased for everybody because chemical costs are so high because of COVID. Gas is so expensive. It just all depends what the type of job is. I had so that was kind of the like creepy crawly one that got me. I've had let me think of a good one. I had one where I hadn't ever dealt with brown recluse before. And it was my first one doing brown recluse. I was with the guy that trained me on a lot of things and another
Right.
person. We were in a old restaurant at the basement of an old restaurant, and they had brown recluse. So we go in there, we're treating for them, getting rid of them. And there's one section where there's a freezer right there, and then there's the wall, and it's just thick enough where you can kind of slide in sideways. And we needed to get back there around the corner because you have to hit everything you can for brown recluse. So I had to slide through this brown recluse filled tunnel with them falling all over me and everything. And I mean, it was tight. So yeah, that one was
Do you
hard.
have nightmares? Do you have nightmares of like bugs and like I literally would be so when I go for my walks in the morning, there's this one spot where there's rocks and I notice that the snakes gravitate towards the rocks. They're always there. I literally have counted like 12, 13 huge freaking scary ass snakes. Like I just seeing them would give me nightmares. So like I don't know how you do your job and not have freaking nightmares. I would be freaking out.
You get used to it. I mean, after a while, like the only thing that bugs me about like going into crawl spaces still, I hate getting spider webs in my face because they're annoying. But I mean, I'll come out of a crawl space covered in webs and shit.
Have you ever felt threatened or unsafe? Because I've always thought of this like, you're vulnerable. You're going into someone's home. You're going underneath into a vulnerable place. And like, say you went into like a gangster's house and they wanted to get like tough with you and you're down there. Like, have you ever had that mindset of like, oh shit, I might need to hurry up and get the F out of here?
Kind of, but not really, because you got to understand pest control is kind of one of those spots where if somebody needs you, they need you. If you fuck
Right.
up a pest control guy, you're going to still have bugs, homie. So,
Right.
I mean, I've gone into places where there have been guns on the table,
Right.
piles of blow and weed. And money everywhere, bitches, whatever. And I guess they kind of understand. I don't care what I see when I walk into your house. It's not my problem. I'm here to kill the bugs. That's it.
Right.
So, I'm not here to report you or nothing. So, as long as you make sure people know, like, if I see a dead body, we're going to have a talk. But besides that, there's just no reason. I mean, there ain't really a reason to feel afraid. I think the one thing that usually gets me is people are very careless with their dogs, and
Okay.
dogs are the thing you got to be more careful of because you'll get attacked and bit like that because people think their dog is friendly, but they just a lot of them aren't. You have to know how to handle animals.
Well, and the thing is the animal probably feels some type of way because it's a stranger coming into their home to the person that they protect. So it's almost like, is this person supposed to be here? Are they not? Should I attack them?
People also don't understand. So some animals will act a certain way when their owner is right there with you, and they'll be super friendly, everything's all good, no problems at all. The second their owner walks away, now that dog is alone with you, not with the owner, and
Right.
they get nervous. That type of thing happens a lot, which whenever you're on a regular route, like I had people's garage door codes, like dozens upon dozens. I could go into people's house whenever the hell I wanted, and just because they were in Florida or wherever. So I would go in and treat, and they would probably, have a dog in there because they'd be gone just for a couple of days. And a lot of
Right.
those pets I was good with because I came around so much. But
Right.
a newer place, nah, you got to be really, really careful.
Absolutely. So, is there good money in pest control? Like, if somebody is interested in a career, would you tell a child that it would be a good, way to support your family?
I would say yes while you're young. You do a lot of crawling. You do. There's a decent amount of manual labor involved. Like we do termite stuff, we do construction stuff. So those are a little bit harder. Uh, as long as you're going to be safe with it and not, be super careless with chemicals, it's good pay. I mean, I was able to buy my house and support my family and be able to start a business and like everything with the business was money I saved up from pest control and like investing and stuff like that. So it's good money. You aren't going to be rich, but
Right.
if you start your own business too, I mean, that's a very big way of making things happen and making more money. You got to find the right place though, because some places they'll work their guys for like the bare minimum and you'll be working 12, 16-hour days, doing just a shit ton of stops, and it's just you can work yourself to the bone.
How do you decompress when you're overwhelmed and overstressed to not bring work home with you?
Now that I'm doing sales, it's a little bit different because I don't know. I have to always be on, which I kind of was before. It's just different. So with sales, I kind of treat it as I'm always working, and if nothing is coming in, then whatever.
Right.
Plus, I have the business, so it's between sales and the biz, it's like nonstop.
Have you ever gone to someone's house and you know how you could just tell, like, yep, like I'm in the spot, I could, you know the vibe, and then you walk into the house and you know what they're about. Like, have you ever felt tempted to be like, yo,
There's never really been a time because I've gone in and there's been blow, there's been bottles of medications and all types of stuff. Um, I don't know. That stuff hasn't bugged me for a long time. The biggest thing is whenever I go in and you can clearly see that, somebody is going through it and in withdrawal, and you just kind of have to work around them and stuff. And it's just like, you
Right.
want help. It's there probably now, since I've been on TikTok, there are probably a fair amount of people that know kind of what I've been through in my past, but I don't know. I have people that, like I said, I have the keys to their house basically that know about my past and
Right.
trust me with anything.
How does it feel today to be a trustworthy person, to be that person that can have a key to someone's house?
It's
That's a full
it's
circle
nice.
moment though.
Yeah, it's nice because I don't know. I guess the only thing that bugs me is whenever someone doesn't trust me for like no reason. That kind of gets to me a little bit more, just because in my eyes, I've earned that trust back, but that's not
Right.
true. It's weird. That's a balancing act.
Yeah. And it's a good feeling to know that today you are trustworthy. Today you can go into someone's home, walk past the medicine cabinet and keep it freaking moving
Oh yes.
without that like, oh wait, let me check, or
I'm trying to think if there was ever a time where like it even crossed my mind, because I've ran into just about everything. I don't think it has. Because the nice thing, whenever I was getting onto subs, there was like a period where I had already decided that I was done with using anyways. So the temptation wasn't there. I guess when I was going through sub withdrawal, there were a couple of times where I was, at somebody's house and they did have Oxy or something was
right.
available. And there was never like knew I was never going to act on it, but there were times where it's like, I feel like shit right now. How nice would it be to
Right.
relieve that?
And that's what I call a fleeting thought. Like you had the thought of using for a moment and then you work through it and let it go.
Yeah, you just don't have to. It doesn't have to be.
You don't
anything.
act on it. Right.
Some people give those thoughts so much power, and it's like, just get it done. You can have, just because you're in recovery doesn't mean you can't. Oh man, I remember what it was like. That would feel good right now. As long as you do not act on it, you're okay.
Absolutely. It's really interesting though to hear about different careers. It's fascinating to me because you deal with different things and different people, different situations.
That's why Marie and I are kind of trying to get into the career side of things too, because we have been doing our recovery content and we still want to help people who are struggling, stuff like that. But we also want to show people what it's like after the fact. And like, if we interview people who do certain jobs, maybe somebody who is fresh into recovery, they think a job sounds really cool and they want to go try and be whatever that person is too.
Right.
If we can give another focus, I mean, that's what we're here for. All right, guys, that's all I got.
Bye, guys.